Hey, what's up, everybody? Justin here. I'm here to give my thoughts on an anime from the last season, and that is God of High School. And God of High School is based on a Korean manga, or as they say, manhwa. So, what is God of High School, or GOH for short exactly? Well, it's South Korea's most prestigious martial arts tournament for teenagers to determine who is the god of high school. And in each city, they have, let's just say, the best three, they become a team, and they move on to the nationals. And in case you want to know, yes, to a certain extent, this tournament is sanctioned by the Korean government, more specifically, this high ranking Korean official. So, yes. So, the main character is Jin Mori. He's a practitioner of Taekwondo, and he has two friends. One practices karate, and the other practices traditional Korean, is a schoolgirl who practices Korean sword fighting. And together they're in this crazy tournament where as it progresses, it just goes out of control. And yeah, so that's all I can say about the plot because, I mean, the plot to a certain extent makes little to no sense. Like all of a sudden, you think this is just this generic martial arts anime, but all of a sudden, like everyone fucking has stamps like it's fucking JoJo. It's explained later on, but like when they first introduce these powers, it's like, what the fuck is this? In both a good and bad way. But yeah, for the most part, you kind of, I mean, despite the 12 episodes, you more or less understand why the three main characters are in this tournament and what they have to gain from it. So if someone wins the tournament, then their wish can come true. So that's just kind of what the tournament is partially about. And as for why Gene Morty wants to participate in this tournament, he wants to prove that his grandfather's taekwondo is number one. And this guy, his friend, I forgot, Daegway, I think is his name, he wants to make some money to help his terminally ill friend. And there's this female character whose name I can't remember at the moment. She just wants to help expand her father's school. That's just, of course, very typical for here and there for martial arts media as a whole. But it gets the job done. That's all I can say. And of course, with some of the secondary characters, you do get an idea of what their motivations are and how they contribute. And the villains are just rather over the top, even for a teenage martial arts series. But yeah, it's paced rather well, but everything kind of seems forced at the same time. A lot of the people who are familiar with the manhwa, which I haven't read, usually they'll say, read the manhwa, it's better. I am not going to disagree with that argument. I do intend to read the original manhwa at one point, but I just kind of don't got the time right now for it. But usually, 9 out of 10 times, the manga or manhwa in this case is always going to be better than the anime. So that's kind of much a dead given. But yeah, the main characters are pretty much generic, but they are very generic for the genre. I mean, but they are generally likable. And the fights in general are pretty cool. They're pretty over the top. They're extreme. I wouldn't put them at the same level, let's say, as Baki or Kengan Ashura, but they kind of feel more like you're watching a fighting game as opposed a fighting game like Street Fighter or King of Fighters, as opposed to something as hardcore as what I just mentioned. But the fights are pretty exciting. They're pretty much all matrixy. Everyone's got a gimmick, and yeah, they'll have you at the edge of your seat, but as I said before, they're exciting, but not to the level of Baki or Kengan Ashura. I would say they're just along the same lines of, let's say, Kenichi the Mightiest Disciple. I put that along the lines of that. I mean, every character has a distinguishing fighting style, and they all work to some, and the styles do make fights. The character designs are pretty generic, nothing that really stands out. I mean, you'd swear this character, he looks like he's from fucking Digimon, and this fucking character looks like Remy from Street Fighter 3. I mean, there's nothing pretty much what I can say original about the designs, but at least you can tell who's who. The music, especially that opening theme. If you want my thoughts on the opening theme itself, there's this Key and Peele sketch about dubstep, and every time I have to listen to the opening theme, that sketch kind of goes through my mind. That's all I can say. But yeah, in the end, do I recommend God of High School? I say if you want some, if you like action and you like over the top and you like something along the lines of, let's say, JoJo, but not as good as JoJo, but something along, let's say, Kengan Ashura or Baki, but not as good as it, but, just as minimally as good as Kenichi, then God of High School in its anime form should be good enough for you. Yeah, of course, it's a very Korean-based series, so I know I shouldn't judge Korean society based on this particular anime as a whole, but it does have certain flaws. For example, it shows like, okay, so if I'm not sure if this applies to Korean real life. Like, okay, take for example a middle-aged man who never got a high school education, but is he still eligible to enter high school? I mean, are any, let's say, Korean equivalent to GED, let's say, students, are they eligible for this tournament? Because I'm getting the impression that they are. I mean, I don't know shit about Korean education, but I can say that God of High School, I mean, if it's written by a Korean, he better do his fucking research when writing these things. I mean, sometimes you'd be surprised what certain manga authors in Japan, the kind of research they put in, and the believability they put in their manga sometimes, despite how over the top they can be. I mean, look at Hajime no Ippo. Even though it does have some crazy fights, especially, let's say, the Miyata and Randy Boy Jr. fight, because Morikawa has his own boxing gym, he can put a lot of believability into Hajime no Ippo. To a certain extent, Baki and Kengan Ashura, they had their own unique believability to it. And like through the commentating of Kengan Ashura, they do give you a principle of how a certain style or technique works, and it's like, okay, it makes sense. And same with Baki, and even same with Dragon Ball. But the anime version to God of High School kind of doesn't do any of that to a certain extent. But as I've heard before, you have to really read the manhwa to appreciate it, and apparently those familiar with the manhwa were not really satisfied with the anime, and I get it, but I'll be sure to check it out. So yeah, that's my review for God of High School.